Hi friends, today we're talking about how creativity is healing. I'm going to be sharing some snippets from my own life's journey, and we're going to talk through how to be kinder to yourself because that matters so much in creativity. And yes, so let's get into it. So I want to start with a very simple truth. Creativity is medicine. And it's medicine, it's medicinal, it's not a cure. We're going to talk about that later, but I really do believe that creativity can help us in so many different layered, nuanced ways. So, personal story, I've been journaling since about 10 years old. I've had a book around me forever, basically. And I noticed in my 20s that basically my journaling had become a little mean and a little harsh and a little judgy. And so, not all of it, of course, but sometimes I would find myself journaling and I would be just being really harsh and mean to myself. And so over time, with realizing that that is not an effective way to heal, I have changed and now I'm much kinder to myself. In the process of becoming kinder to myself, I created a free printable that you can download with 50 kind journal prompts to help loosen your heart and see what's what in there. Now, last year I went through a season of deep burnout and grief, and it was no fun, but I did find that after I'd been in this portal of grief and burnout for a while, I made it back to journaling as a way to help this. So for me, that looked like three different types, well, really four different types of journaling, and I'll go through each one of these and tell you about it. But the first thing that I found myself doing was art journaling, and I actually started in January of this year. It's 25 at the time of recording, and in January, I started art journaling, and so that was a way to non-verbally process my feelings, and it really helped me to get to like the bottom of my grief pit and then begin to rise back up. So art journaling, and again, it wasn't about making this perfectly beautiful page. It was about just combining the elements I had in a way that made sense for my nervous system, and it allowed me to process in a way that I totally did not expect. Art journaling also helped me let go of perfectionism a lot because, again, in the earlier iteration of this, I was very perfectionistic and I let go of a lot of that, and that was a balm for my heart. So definitely art journaling is a big one. The next type of journaling is everyday journaling. Now, that might seem like a bit of a flat name, everyday journaling, like what? So this is the journal where I actually write my words, and I write down what happened, how I feel, my future visions. And so the everyday journal is also where I track things. Sometimes I track in long-term collections. We'll get there in a sec. But the everyday journal really is just a place to land in words to verbally process with writing. So that's really important too. We have the art journal for nonverbal processing, and then we have the everyday journal for verbal processing. And like I said, they're all helpful. So the next one is long-term collection. So that's another journal that I keep that really helps my mental health. And right now in the long-term collections, they are housing my monthly trackers. Now that's going to change in a little bit, but for now, long-term collections houses not only my few years of information, like 25, 26, and 27 are housed in that long-term collections, but also monthly spreads are in there currently. So I'm tracking a bunch of stuff. There's a video about trackers that I will try to put right here, so hopefully that works out. But anyway, if you want to check out that tracker video. So yes, so long-term collections, art journaling, and everyday journaling. And then there's a fourth one that I want to bring up. It's a little unconventional in my opinion, but this is something I do pretty often to just keep my head on straight and to keep me processing and well. So that is, I had this thing called the Healing Diaries, and that is literally voice notes on my phone, and I label each one Healing Diaries 247, and I put the little topic of whatever I talked about. And I said 247 because the Healing Diaries on my voice notes app, which is private just for me, but it's a place for me to verbally process, out loud process. And there are over 250 recordings it might even be close to 350. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know I've done more than 250 of these. So that's another, again, we're not journaling with our hand, but we're still journaling with our heart in this way, where we're having the, the opportunity to record. And then the great thing about that, you can always read over your journal when you're done writing it, but you can also play back the voice recording. So that can be wild and just gives you an opportunity to see things from a different perspective. So I think that the voice notes are just very helpful for me, because sometimes I need to out loud process with the voice notes. Sometimes I need to collage a bunch of scraps and figure out what's what that way. And sometimes I need to physically write out what is going on and my thoughts and feelings about it. They all have, they're all winners for different times, but it's good to have multiple tools in our toolkit. Let's talk about why creativity heals. I see it as sort of 3 different levels. We have body healing, we have healing for the mind and emotions, and then we have healing for the spirit. So for body healing, when we make stuff, when we slow down enough to get into that right side of our brain and start to make these connections on the page, it really does relax our whole nervous system when we do this. And so that brings us out of fight or flight, out of that survival parasympathetic mode, and it brings us into rest and digest, or a state where we can actually tend to ourselves, right? Journaling is a place to tend to ourselves. And so when we are in fight or flight, there's no way for us to really process what's going on. We need to come into wholeness, into presence, and then we can process what's happening and move it through our field and out of our awareness. But if we're just kind of, staying all freaked out, it's not going to move that energy the same way as when we calm the body. So body healing is really important, and creativity can be a huge part of this. The other thing is for the mind and emotions. So again, I talked about verbally and non-verbally processing, and then out loud processing with the phone. So our mind gets so cluttered with all these thoughts. We have like hundreds of thousands of thoughts every day. And it's just so important for us to take time to unclutter our awareness. So from a mental perspective, we can be much clearer when we, use these tools that we have to come back into the present, to regulate, and then the mental space feels much better as well. And then for the spirit or the soul, creativity touches the mystery. Who knows why we're putting the green scrap of paper there? Because we just know it has to go there. Creativity, to me, in my opinion, makes us a conduit for source, for God, loves, the universe, whatever you want to call it, to come through us, to work through our hands. Because, like the universe has many hands in all of us, but the universe doesn't have hands, like physical hands. This is a whole existential thing. Maybe I'll do a separate video on the universe having hands. But anyway, basically, like, we have been gifted these hands and we can use them. And when we use our hands to create things from our heart, it really does, it touches the mystery. It touches that thing that connects us all. And I love getting to create with my hands and my heart. And it might sound a little, woo or something, but I really do feel like when we create things, we're utilizing this beautiful power that we've been given as human beings. And it can be so satisfying to make something. Even if you're not like a creative person, we can do little bits and bobs, little scraps, and make a little collage or make a little composition. And it really can move energy and make us feel like, wow, I did a thing. And then you put it on the wall and you feel so proud, or on the fridge. Anyway, that's just one way of dealing with your creativity, is to put it on the fridge, right? I hope you respect and honor whatever you make, because that's a part of it too. We can respect and honor ourselves and what we make, and just know that we have an important, unique frequency to share. So, okay, and I said it before, but it's true and it bears repeating. Creativity is medicine. It's medicinal. It's not a cure necessarily. Now, sometimes we can cure depression and cure anxiety and cure all kinds of things with creativity, but it's just art journaling gave me a place to go to hold my grief and my burnout and, all the other things that were going on. It didn't cure it. It gave me a place to hold it. And I think that's so important, that we learn how to hold what we have in ourselves without pushing it down and denying that it's there. That's really easier. It makes life harder when you push things down, and it makes us less well. But it feels like the ego's like, I don't want to deal with that. Push that down, And so when we can really bring these things up and look at what is going on with us and then process that, I don't know, it's just such a soulful process to me. Hopefully that makes sense. Because, when I used to kind of numb out or distract myself, that wasn't healing. The healing really comes in this soulful process of looking at what is, of kind of negotiating with what is, and doing something with it. Whether that's just noticing it and then creating something in that energy of noticing the grief or the sadness or the joy or whatever emotion we're feeling. If we can notice and kind of take that down in our art, it helps it to get it out of our bodies, in my opinion. That's been my experience. So let's talk about some practical ways that you can use creativity in your own life. So one thing I love to do is set a timer. Timers are our friend, and you can set a timer for 10 or 20 minutes, however long you feel you have. But 10 minutes is a great starting point, and you can just create with the materials you have around you, whether that's scrap pieces of paper, old envelopes and old junk mail, pens, random pens that you have, whatever you have. It doesn't have to be fancy art supplies and stickers and all of that. It can be just literally whatever's around. And you set a timer for 10 minutes, rip stuff up, write on things, doodle, rip that up, make a new composition, and see how it makes you feel for just 10 minutes. Just set the timer for 10 minutes. The other thing you can try is to light a candle before you create, to make it kind of a ritual vibe. You can also light a candle for a lot of things, like before you eat, maybe before you take a shower or a bath, you light a candle. Any self-care activity could always use a candle as well, and to make it more of a ritualistic thing. And of course, you're burning the candle safely. I don't need to tell you that, but I will tell you, burn the candle safely every time. And then the other thing we can do with our creativity is to add a kindness mantra. Like, this page does not have to be perfect. It just has to hold me. So yeah, you can do these 3 things: set a timer, light a candle, or add a kindness mantra. And again, if you'd like extra support, I made that 50 kind journal prompts printable, which you can find in the description box below. And I hope you enjoy it if you get it. These prompts are designed to meet you with gentleness. If you're in kind of a potent moment, they will be very helpful. And in closing, I'd just like to remind us all that self-judgment does not help us. It just makes us feel bad. So we can be kind to ourselves and utilize creativity in a way that works for us, making it our own and allowing it to serve us in a way that makes us feel met wherever we are. It does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be beautiful. It does not have to produce a product at the end that, everyone will celebrate. This is really an internal experience with creativity where you get to really be with what is. And that can be so powerful. If this resonates, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel, where we're going to weave more creativity, spirituality, and healing together. And thank you so much for watching. May your pages, your rituals, and your life hold you with kindness. Until next time, y'all.